Good afternoon. This morning, 3 salvage teams were airlifted onto the Rena. Those teams had as the first priority to undertake another safety check of the vessel, followed by re-establishing the pumping operations. And I can't see the screen below, but there's some video footage that we'll just show you for the start. As a descriptor, you can see here once again a stop, a pause, but you can see the hoses with the floats on it. That's the floating line that goes from the Rena into the Awanui, and that's the line where there is the fuel being pumped through. The containers in the middle of the reefers, those are refrigerated containers, and as you can see, they've been quite squashed. The vast majority of containers on the stern section of the vessel are empty, so they have nothing in them, and that's where we lost a lot of the 88 overboard. And now we're back into the start of the presentation. So pumping recommenced at 12:09 today, and during that time they've managed to be able to reinstall, they initially reinstalled the booster pump inside that circuit. Later on this afternoon, the circuit breakers and the circuits on that booster pump blew out, and so they had to remove that out of the system, and they've had to replace that in the operation. So while they were ramping up that operation, slowly increasing the amount of oil being pumped, booster pump blew circuits. They then flew another one out and are reconnecting it, and so they flew that out at about just before 2:30. And are now re-establishing that back into the circuit. This is the hole in the starboard side of the Rena, and you can see here, if you have a look at the black part at the top, you can look into there's a long corridor, right, which goes on the whole length of the ship. And it's down inside that long corridor where the manhole cover is for the fuel tanks. And so there's one on that side and there's one on the port side as well. So one of the things that they'll be doing, they're doing today, is they've had divers inside that, down the other end, over the number 5 starboard tank, looking at how they can actually seal off that area, and also sealing off one of the watertight doors to the engine room. So there's a slight leak in one of those watertight doors, and they're going to put some putty around that door to seal it up to stop water and grease. And that's because it's important to maintain that buoyancy in the engine room of the vessel. But once they've sealed the door, they're going to put a couple of dams, coffer dams, at either end or either side of the manhole cover, pump the water out of that, and then they're going to be able to try accessing the number 5 starboard. Priority, as always, is going to be number 5 port, and making sure they can get as much oil out of that as possible. Jumped a couple, but that's fine. In the last few days, there's been virtually no movement discernible in the orientation of the vessel. It seems as though it has settled, although precariously, over the reef at the moment. So there's minimal movement. The solvers now have motion sensors on board the vessel, and they're recording that the stern section relative to the forward section has a rocking motion of about 0.5 of a degree, and raising up and down at the stern by about 1 degree. So it's not completely detached at all, they're connected, and there is a variation in the motion of them. You can see here that this is some of the equipment that Svitzer have in country, and I understand that a number of you saw that equipment the shed yesterday. So Svitzer, it's a good example of why they bring so much kit, is that when they blew out the booster pump, they had another one on standby ready to go. They brought the helicopter and uplifted that and took it straight back out. And there's the set offending spare one that's now being replaced out on the vessel. So the amount of equipment, when the solvers initially came over, they brought over their own 747, and New Zealand provided a C-130 Hercules full of kit, which they also brought over. So it was about making sure that really quickly the solvers had the key equipment on site ready to go. It's been staged out of this shed, and it's right where they have a helicopter landing zone as well. Moving on to containers. You'll recall that 88 containers went over the side during the recent storm, the one before. 35 of those containers have been buoyed around the country. Of the 35 that have been buoyed, 16 have sunk. That's okay because they can come along and collect those later on. There are 7 which have been unconfirmed, but 7 containers in the area of White Island, 9 in the area of Maititi, 3 further east in varying locations, and 5 have been recovered. So that takes a total of 49 containers which are known and are able to be processed. The P&I Club have engaged Braemar Howell to do the container recovery, and Braemar Howell have submitted a plan on how they propose to remove those containers and are starting to operationalise it. So the responsibility for that container recovery is transferring from Svitzer to Braemar Howell, and it's key for New Zealand to make sure that's been in a seamless manner, and the plans that both organisations have provided are ensuring that that's occurring. There are 29 containers unconfirmed, or their location is unconfirmed. One of the tasks that Braemar Howell will be undertaking is to do a side-scanning sonar survey of the region to identify the location of those lost containers and then go through a recovery process for them. I'd just like to reiterate again that the public should not try entering the containers. There are rotting foodstuffs, there are other noxious things which just come from rotting cargo and the like, so don't go opening them. Tell people where they are, tell us, 800 Oil Spill, where those containers are, and we will have people come and assess them properly. Braemar Howell have dedicated teams who are tracking these containers and have a process around their recovery. And so it's important that, when they are recovered, that people are appropriately dressed in the right equipment. And then you end up with this. So remembering that all of these containers still have to go through customs clearance, they have to go through hazmat, hazardous materials to make sure that they're safe for people to be operating in. And so it's a proper staged process that Braemar Howell have in place to be able to recover those containers.